Hello all, I'm Scarp SCS, but that's not important right now, as in this episode of Cogs, Gears and Optic Sensors, we are looking at the Marvel UK Transformer story Raiders of the Last Ark. This was spread across issues 18 through 21 between the May and June of 1985. Simon Furman continues to solidify his position as the go-to scribe, with Mike Collins and Jeff Anderson returning on the art duties. Presented in a mix of full colour and black and white artwork, which is the version I'm going to be showcasing to you here today, and with the title clearly referencing the 1981 film Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is also the last Marvel UK issue to feature toy-accurate depictions as opposed to the conventional character models that we know today. We start our story with some exposition, recapping the battle aboard the Ark, setting the scene for new readers, and re-establishing the status quo for the longer-term ones. Wasting no time, we see Megatron looking over a very familiar-looking crashed spaceship, and the text box tells us that this is the last of the great arcs. Multiple arcs never really being established in the G1 comic continuity, but certainly did become a thing much later on, where IDW's run was seen to be building models of them all. Furman, though, wastes no time in getting us into the action, having Buzzsaw and Laserbeak slice through the Ark's hull as Jazz runs for cover. And remember, in this comic continuity, the animal cassettes can talk, so as Laserbeak begins to boast about his accomplishments, he's quickly dispatched by none other than Optimus Prime. Now, I've always found this particular bit of characterization for Optimus a little off, as he effectively goads his troops into combat by provoking them to prove themselves to him. But it works, with this sequence showing off the exchange of fire between both sides, and Jazz, with his penchant for setting things on fire, tries to take care of Soundwave with little success, and the toy reference pieces really give themselves away here, as Soundwave is seen using his shoulder-mounted blaster effectively as a handheld weapon. Windcharger, who was never really given a huge amount to do in the books, does get this neat little bio reference around his magnetic fields, and as he launches Ravage away, only to cement himself as the target of the Decepticon mini cassette's anger. But Furman plays an absolute blinder on this page, ensuring that he doesn't get embroiled in the greatest fandom debate of all time, as Sideswipe faces off against Rumble. Is he red or is he blue? By making sure that it's on a black and white page, he neatly sidesteps the issue that hadn't actually become one yet, and we get this cool box of Sideswipe literally swiping a Decepticon. And besides, everyone knows that they're both red, so it's a bit of a non-argument anyway. Prime, though, fearing the worst for the Autobots, and with the Ark still in a state of disrepair, decides to invoke Autnie to take control of the automated defense systems, because we all know that AI controlling your weaponry is a really, really good idea.
It becomes self-aware at 2:14 a.m. Eastern Time, August 29th.
Now, what I want to know is how Prime knew which key was which on a keyboard with no markings, given that I can't cope when we hot desk at work, but he clearly gets his command prompts in just in time before Megatron destroys the interface, but it would appear that Auntie still functions as the two rival faction leaders duke it out. And a flip of the page reveals Auntie, a concept casually mentioned in issue number 1 of the US title, picked up and run with by the UK books, as Teletron 1 hadn't really established itself as the go-to operating system for the fiction just yet. But the battle still rages on outside, which is proving far too much of a distraction to Auntie and her plans, so much to the confusion of Prowl, who probably thinks that he should be the only one flinging things around to get what they want, as she magnetizes them all to the walls of the ship, including managing to suspend the two faction leaders, and she instructs them to plead their case. Almost enough to convince you to lean on the Quintesson origin story.
Has the Imperial Magistrate reached a verdict? I have. Guilty or innocent? Innocent. Feed him to the Sharkticons.
Elsewhere within the depths of the ship, Ravage and Windcharger, who were last seen kicking the seven surveyors at each other, are forced into an uneasy alliance if they want to make good their escape, despite bickering like a conjunct endurer. But before they know it, they've tripped the laser net, forcing Ravage to quite literally spring into action. offlining it in a fairly permanent fashion, only for the residual electrical build-up to short-circuit our unlikely team-up, as an overloaded Windcharger recounts to us, the readers, how he and Ravage were able to circumvent the magnetic fields emitted by Auntie, who is still busy hearing the pleas from both Optimus and Megatron, with Optimus pleading for Auntie to dig deep into her memory banks, as Megatron tries to sow the seed of doubt around his group's intentions, and Auntie lays bare her own plans that those she finds guilty will be destroyed. But it's our leader's turns to cooperate now, as Optimus tries to reason with Megatron, who slowly comes round to see his point and may have an escape plan of his own, as Ravage comes to the frustrating conclusion that if he wants to save his own chassis, he's going to have to save Windcharger first, and reluctantly brings the Autobot back online. And as our pair make their way through Auntie's myriad of defences, Ravage expresses his unease at how easy the last door seems to be, only for them to be confronted by the Guardian robot, who has most definitely not been skipping shoulders on gym day. But we'll have to see how that plays out, as Megatron, charged up from the magnetic fields, taps into the power of a black hole and is prepping to release it and destroy Auntie once and for all, before a sudden noise distracts the pair as Windcharger, the Guardian robot, and Ravage come literally crashing through the door, as Ravage hurls himself at her interface, severing her circuit boards and rendering her inoperative once again. And with no Auntie, both Megatron and Optimus are released from the magnetic suspension, and as they tumble to the floor, Megatron thinks he's found a use for the newly absorbed energy from a couple of pages back, and as he looks in the direction of Prime, Windcharger, desperate to come to the aid of his commander, and no doubt exhausted from putting the Guardian robot down, always a battle I actually wanted to see play out on the page to be fair, magnetically launches Megatron as hard as he can, sending him careering through the roof of the Ark, through the side of the volcano, to land who knows where. So, the battle may be won, as Windcharger burns his own circuits out. Our intrepid Autobot leader surveys the cost of the damage to his team, with multiple Autobots deactivated, Auntie deleted, and untold damage to the Ark, as they find a warning from the Decepticons that they'll be back. And I'd love to know which one of the cons were both vindictive enough and had the time to do that. And that, folks, is a lightning quick retrospective run through of Raiders of the Lost Ark, a very rarely seen story outside of the original UK run, which wasn't reprinted until 26 years later by IDW in the Transformers Classic UK Volume 1, and then later in the Hachette collection in 2017 in full-blown colour from IDW's Jean-Paul Beauvais. It never made it into the UK collected comics or the Titan books from the early noughties, so it really is quite a rarity. So where did you first encounter this story? Let me know in the comments. Please feel free to subscribe to the channel, and if you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave one anyway. Thanks for watching along, and whatever you do, stay safe.